I had always trusted my gut instinct in business, but never thought I would need it in my marriage. As the CEO of a successful cybersecurity firm, I noticed subtle changes in my wife Sophia that set off alarm bells. Then came the call from my friend who spotted her with a prominent divorce attorney. Instead of confronting her, I decided to investigate and prepare. Our life continued in tense silence until I discovered her true plan. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below and hit subscribe if you want to know what happened next. My name is Lincoln, and at 35 years old, I had built a thriving cybersecurity software company from the ground up. The business was my passion, the culmination of years of hard work and sacrifice. I met Sophia at a charity gala 7 years ago. She was intelligent, ambitious, and captivated me from the moment we locked eyes across the room. After a year of dating, we decided to get married in a small but elegant ceremony by the coast. The early years of our marriage were blissful. We purchased a beautiful home in an upscale neighborhood, traveled to exotic destinations during holidays, and supported each other as we built our careers. Sophia had been working in marketing when we met, but 2 years into our marriage, she transitioned to a position at a prestigious law firm, handling their client relations and business development. After 5 years of marriage, things began to change. The shifts were subtle at first, almost imperceptible. Sophia changed the passwords on her phone and laptop without sharing the new ones with me. When I asked about it casually, she claimed it was for work security purposes, which seemed reasonable given the confidential nature of legal work. Then came more concerning behaviors. She began taking calls in other rooms, lowering her voice when I walked by. Her phone was always face down or locked when not in use. She started coming home later, often claiming she was working overtime, as the law firm had taken on several new high-profile clients. The woman who used to ask about my day and share details of hers became increasingly distant and vague. When I suggested weekend getaways or asked about her workday, her responses became shorter, less enthusiastic. Most concerning was her sudden avoidance of conversations about our future together. Previously, we had discussed having children within the next year or two, but whenever I brought it up now, she would change the subject or claim she wanted to focus on her career advancement first. I tried everything I could think of to strengthen our relationship. I made reservations at her favorite restaurant, surprised her with gifts, and even organized a special anniversary celebration at the venue where we had our first date. For our 6th anniversary, I proposed a romantic vacation to Italy, a destination she had always dreamed of visiting. To my disappointment, she declined, citing an important case that required her presence at the firm. The final alarm bell rang when my best friend Jackson called me one afternoon. His voice was hesitant as he shared what he had witnessed during lunch at an upscale restaurant downtown. Jackson works as a financial advisor, and his office is located in the same building as Blackwell & Associates, one of the most reputable divorce law firms in our city. He had seen Sophia having lunch with Catherine Blackwell herself, a lawyer notorious for securing extremely favorable divorce settlements for her clients, particularly when substantial assets were involved. Instead of immediately confronting Sophia, which would have been my first instinct years ago, I decided to step back and observe. There could be innocent explanations. Perhaps the law firm Sophia worked for was collaborating with Blackwell on a case. Maybe they were discussing a mutual client. But deep down, a voice whispered that something was very wrong. That evening, as Sophia showered, I found myself doing something I never thought I would do in my marriage. I glanced at her browser history on her laptop, which she had left open. What I found made my heart sink. Multiple searches for terms like property rights in divorce, hidden assets, and business valuation during marital dissolution. This was just the beginning of my investigation, a journey that would reveal how little I truly knew about the woman I had shared a bed with for 6 years. The morning after discovering Sophia had been researching divorce laws, I woke up with a heavy heart but a determined mind. I decided to dig deeper while maintaining our normal routine. She left for work early as usual, kissing me goodbye with a smile that now seemed rehearsed. Later that day, while working from home, I found Sophia had forgotten to log out of her email on our shared desktop computer. I noticed an email with the subject line, "Asset Valuation Results." Opening it revealed correspondence between Sophia and a financial analyst discussing the current value of our home investment accounts and, most alarmingly, my company. The email mentioned gathering information for further planning with a timeline suggesting action within the next month. Over the next week, I discreetly examined our financial statements and discovered small but regular transfers from our joint account to a personal account under her name. These had been occurring for approximately 6 months, totaling nearly $30,000. While not an enormous sum compared to our overall assets, the pattern was clear and deliberate. I spent evenings researching divorce laws in our state, while pretending to work late. I learned that our state followed equitable distribution principles, meaning that assets acquired during marriage would be divided fairly, though not necessarily equally. What troubled me most was learning that my company, though established before our marriage, could potentially be considered marital property since its value had increased significantly during our years together. My fears were confirmed when I discovered a receipt for a private investigator in Sophia's desk drawer. She had hired someone to investigate my financial situation, business connections, and personal activities. This was no longer speculation. My wife was methodically preparing to divorce me and potentially claim a substantial portion of everything I had built. The most damning evidence came in the form of a small notebook I found tucked into her nightstand while looking for an aspirin. Inside were detailed notes about our assets, potential divorce strategies, and even a timeline. The final date on the timeline was circled in red, just 3 weeks away, with the notation, "File paperwork." The reality hit me like a physical blow. My marriage was ending not with a conversation or counseling attempt, but with a calculated ambush designed to maximize financial gain. One evening, I overheard a phone conversation that Sophia was having in our home office. She thought I was at the gym, but I had returned early due to a mild headache. I could only make out her side of the conversation. "Yes, everything is proceeding as planned. He does not suspect anything. The business valuation came in higher than expected. We should be able to secure at least half of the company value. The court will see that my support enabled its growth." Each word felt like a knife twisting in my chest. The betrayal was complete. The woman I had loved and trusted was plotting to claim ownership of the company I had built from nothing, the culmination of my life's work and passion. As if the financial betrayal was not painful enough, I soon discovered another layer to Sophia's deception. While reviewing our credit card statements, I noticed charges from an upscale hotel downtown on days when Sophia claimed to be working late. The hotel was just 2 blocks from her office. My suspicions led me to drive by her workplace one evening when she texted she would be working late. I saw her leaving the building with a man I recognized as her new department head. They walked closely together, his hand on the small of her back, as they entered a restaurant across the street. I did not confront them. Instead, I sat in my car watching as they enjoyed an intimate dinner complete with wine and lingering touches. When they eventually left together, heading toward the nearby hotel, I had my answer. This was not just about money. Sophia had found someone new and was planning to use my assets to build a life with him. That night, as she slipped into bed beside me with a peck on my cheek and a fabricated story about a difficult client meeting, I made a decision. I would not be blindsided. I would not allow myself to be used as a financial stepping stone for her new life. And most importantly, I would protect what I had spent my entire adult life building. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in years and scheduled an appointment with Thomas Grant, one of the most respected divorce attorneys in our city. I was careful to use my personal phone and pay the consultation fee in cash to avoid leaving a paper trail. Thomas listened intently as I detailed my discoveries and suspicions. When I finished speaking, he nodded gravely. "Lincoln, based on what you have shared, your wife is clearly planning a strategic divorce." His expression was sympathetic but professional. "You need to understand something important. The courts frown upon hiding assets or suddenly transferring property to avoid division. Such actions can result in severe penalties, including the court awarding your wife more than she might have otherwise received." My heart sank. Thomas must have seen my expression because he quickly continued. "However, there are perfectly legal ways to protect yourself. You are not required to be passive when you have reason to believe divorce is imminent. We can take steps to document your contributions to the business, establish its premarital value, and ensure all your assets are properly classified." Over the next 2 hours, Thomas outlined a comprehensive strategy to protect my interests without crossing any legal or ethical line. I would need to gather evidence of Sophia's planning and possible infidelity, which could impact the court's view of equitable distribution. Document the founding and growth of my business, emphasizing work completed before marriage. Establish clear records of any inheritance or gifts that should be considered separate property. Consider restructuring some business assets in legally permissible ways. Prepare detailed financial statements showing my contributions to our marital assets. This was not about hiding assets, but about ensuring transparency and proper classification. Thomas warned me that the process would be emotionally draining, but necessary to protect my future. I left his office with a clear action plan and a renewed sense of purpose that helped temper the overwhelming pain of betrayal. That afternoon, I began implementing Thomas' suggestions. I retrieved business records dating back to before my marriage, showing the original structure and valuation of my company. I compiled evidence of my inheritance from my grandfather that had provided the seed money for my business, clearly establishing it as separate property. Working with my company's financial team, I legally restructured some business assets, placing them in appropriate corporate vehicles that offered better protection. I was careful to follow all legal requirements and proper valuation procedures. This was not about hiding anything, but about organizing my affairs appropriately, given the circumstances. The emotional toll was immense. Each night, I returned home to share dinner with a woman who was planning my financial demise. I had to maintain normalcy, feign ignorance, and suppress the urge to confront her. There were moments when I almost broke, nearly asking her about the hotel receipts or the lunch with Catherine Blackwell. But I held firm, knowing that tipping my hand too early would only give her time to counter my preparations. During those 2 weeks, I experienced a roller coaster of emotions. The deep ache of betrayal would suddenly give way to flashes of anger so intense, I had to leave the room. Sometimes watching Sophia prepare for work in the morning, chatting about inconsequential things, as if nothing was wrong, I felt an almost out-of-body experience. How could this be happening? How had we gone from loving partners to strategic opponents? The hardest part was acknowledging that the woman I had loved for years was capable of such calculated deception. It forced me to question every memory, every moment we had shared. Had any of it been real? Had she ever truly loved me? Or had I simply been a good prospect, a stepping stone to the life she wanted? One evening, while Sophia was supposedly working late, I decided to check her personal laptop again. This time I discovered text messages synced from her phone to her computer. The exchanges between her and her boss David confirmed my worst suspicions. They had been involved for nearly 8 months, and their messages outlined a future together after her divorce was finalized. Even more disturbing were their discussions about using her divorce settlement to invest in a new legal venture David was planning. They had calculated that her portion of my company's value would provide enough capital for them to start their own boutique firm specializing in intellectual property law. She was not just leaving me, she was planning to use my life's work to fund her new life with another man. With this final piece of evidence, I completed my preparations. Thomas assured me that we had taken all legally appropriate steps to protect my interests. Now, all I could do was wait for Sophia to make her move, knowing that when she did, I would not be the unsuspecting victim she anticipated. Exactly 2 weeks after my meeting with Thomas, I returned home from work to find Sophia sitting at our dining room table with a folder in front of her. Her expression was a mixture of determination and what appeared to be practiced sympathy. "Lincoln, we need to talk," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. "I have been unhappy for some time, and I believe our marriage has run its course. I am filing for divorce." She pushed the folder toward me containing divorce papers already drawn up by Catherine Blackwell. Her timing was exactly as outlined in her notebook. What she did not expect was my calm reaction. "I understand," I replied, not touching the folder. "I have suspected this was coming for a while now." Her carefully composed expression faltered. "What do you mean the signs were there, Sophia? The late nights, the changed passwords, the secret meetings with divorce attorneys." "I have known for weeks." Color drained from her face. "You knew, and you did not say anything. I wanted to be sure, and I wanted to understand why." "Is it because of David?" I asked, my voice steady, despite the pain that still felt fresh. Her eyes widened in shock. "I do not know what you are talking about," she stammered, but the flush creeping up her neck betrayed her. "I think you do. The texts, the hotel receipts, the plans you two have been making for your new firm using my money." Her shocked expression gave way to anger. "You went through my things. You spied on me." "Yes, I did," I admitted. "After Jackson saw you having lunch with Catherine Blackwell, I became suspicious. What I discovered confirmed those suspicions. You have been planning this divorce for months, calculating how to extract maximum financial benefit. You have been having an affair with David while plotting to use your divorce settlement to fund your new venture together. For a moment, Sophia seemed speechless. Then her composure cracked entirely. Fine. Yes, David and I are together. He appreciates me in ways you never did. He has vision, ambition. We are going to build something important together. Using my money, I pointed out. Half of everything is legally mine, Lincoln, she snapped. I am entitled to it. I supported you while you built your precious company. I attended the boring corporate events, maintained our social connections, played the perfect wife. I listened as she continued her justification, feeling a strange sense of detachment. The woman before me was a stranger, someone who viewed our marriage as a business arrangement that had served its purpose. When she finally ran out of steam, I spoke quietly. I have already taken steps to protect what is rightfully mine, Sophia. I know about your plans. I have documentation of your affair, your consultations with financial analysts, your attempts to gather information about my company. She stared at me in disbelief. What have you done? Nothing illegal, I assured her. Just what any reasonable person would do when they discover their spouse is plotting against them. I have organized my affairs appropriately. Her face contorted with rage. You cannot do that. It is too late. Actually, it is not. My company was founded before our marriage with inheritance money that is legally separate property. I have documentation of all of this. The court will see that while the company grew during our marriage, the groundwork and initial investment were mine alone. As for the affair, while our state does not consider infidelity in property division, it does impact credibility. Sophia grabbed her phone, presumably to call her attorney. As she did, I continued calmly. There is something else you should know. David has been using you, Sophia. She paused, finger hovering over the screen. What are you talking about? I hired a private investigator of my own after discovering your affair. David has made similar promises to 2 other women in the past 3 years. He has a pattern of encouraging wealthy, or potentially wealthy women to invest in business ventures that mysteriously fail, leaving him with the capital and the women with nothing. You are lying, she hissed, but I could see doubt flicker in her eyes. The file is on the counter, I said, indicating a manila envelope I had placed there before she arrived home. Records of failed businesses, testimonials from previous partners, financial discrepancies. Your attorney should review it before proceeding. In that moment, as Sophia opened the file and began scanning its contents, I saw her carefully constructed plan crumbling before her eyes. David had promised her a partnership, both romantic and professional, funded by her divorce settlement. Now she was facing the possibility that she was being played just as she had tried to play me. The confrontation continued for hours, swinging between accusations, revelations, and occasional moments of painful honesty. Sophia eventually admitted that their plan had been to secure half of my company's value, approximately $3 million as capital for their new venture. David had convinced her that she deserved it after years of playing second fiddle to my career. The next day, I received an angry call from David himself accusing me of interfering in his relationship. I remained calm, simply stating that I had shared factual information that Sophia deserved to know before making life-altering decisions. His threats about taking me down in court rang hollow given the evidence I had accumulated. The weeks that followed were among the most challenging of my life. Sophia's attorney, realizing that their original strategy would not yield the expected results, shifted tactics. Catherine Blackwell began positioning Sophia as a victim, suggesting that I had been emotionally unavailable and overly focused on my business to the detriment of our marriage. Most shocking was Sophia's false claim that I had been verbally abusive during our marriage, an allegation that stunned me and turned some of our mutual friends against me. The woman I had loved for years was now willing to destroy my reputation to improve her settlement prospects. Fortunately, I had documentation of our communications throughout our marriage, showing a relationship that, while it had its challenges, contained no evidence of abuse. I also had character witnesses from both my professional and personal life who were willing to testify on my behalf. The most painful aspect was the division in our social circle. People I had considered friends for years chose sides, often based on incomplete information. Some believed Sophia's narrative, without question, while others stood firmly in my corner. Family members from both sides became embroiled in the conflict with her parents, making public statements about my character that bore little resemblance to reality. Through it all, I maintained my focus on the facts and refused to engage in the character assassination that seemed to be Sophia's new strategy. Thomas reminded me repeatedly that courts are ultimately concerned with evidence, not emotions. After 3 grueling months of negotiations, depositions, and hearings, we reached a turning point. Evidence emerged that Sophia had been dishonest in her financial disclosures, attempting to hide the money she had been siphoning from our joint account. This discovery significantly damaged her credibility with the court. Then came the decisive moment. During a particularly tense deposition, David was questioned about his past business dealings and his relationship with Sophia. Under pressure and facing potential perjury charges, he admitted that their relationship had begun nearly 8 months before Sophia filed for divorce. He also acknowledged discussing using her divorce settlement to fund their new firm. His testimony effectively undermined Sophia's position. The court now had clear evidence that her divorce filing was not simply the result of an unhappy marriage, but part of a calculated financial strategy tied to her infidelity. Just as my personal life seemed to be falling apart, my professional life took an unexpected positive turn. My company secured a major government contract, our largest to date. The irony was not lost on me that the very business Sophia had hoped to capitalize on was thriving despite the turmoil in my personal life. With this professional success bolstering my position and the mounting evidence against Sophia, the balance of power in our divorce proceedings shifted dramatically. I was no longer fighting to protect what was mine. I was now negotiating from a position of strength. 6 months after Sophia first handed me those divorce papers, we reached a settlement. The agreement was fair, though certainly not what she had initially hoped for. She received a reasonable portion of our marital assets, including half of our home value and joint investment accounts. However, her claims to my company were substantially reduced when the court recognized its premarital origins and my grandfather's inheritance as its seed funding. After the final papers were signed, I felt an odd mixture of victory and loss. I had protected my company and financial future, but at the cost of the relationship I had once valued above all else. As I watched Sophia leave the courthouse with Catherine Blackwell, there was no satisfaction in knowing I had outmaneuvered her plans. Only relief that this chapter of my life was finally closing. The aftermath brought unexpected developments. David and Sophia planned for a new firm collapsed when he was offered a partnership at a prestigious law firm in another state. He accepted the position and moved, leaving Sophia behind despite their supposed plans for a future together. Adding insult to injury, Sophia lost her position at the law firm when her affair with David became public knowledge, creating what the managing partners called a professionally compromising situation. I focused on rebuilding my life piece by piece. The company continued to thrive, and I found unexpected solace in pouring my energy into work. I expanded our operations, hired new talent, and pursued innovative projects that had been on the back burner during the divorce proceedings. On the personal front, I joined a support group for people who had experienced difficult divorces. The shared stories and collective wisdom helped me process my emotions in ways that individual therapy had not. I learned that my experience, while painful, was not unique, and that healing was possible with time and intentional effort. 1 year after our divorce was finalized, I unexpectedly ran into Sophia at a local coffee shop. The woman standing before me looked different from the confident, calculating person who had served me divorce papers. She seemed tired, subdued. After an awkward greeting, she asked if we could talk. Over coffee, she revealed that David had indeed taken advantage of her. The money she had received in our settlement, which she had invested in what he had promised would be their joint venture, had disappeared when he moved across the country. The firm he joined had a strict non-compete clause, making their planned business impossible, and he had refused to return her investment. "I do not expect your sympathy, Lincoln," she said, stirring her coffee absently. "I made my choices, and I am living with the consequences. But I wanted you to know that I regret how I handled things. Not just the divorce, but the years before. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of what was important. I did not offer reconciliation or even friendship. Those bridges had been thoroughly burned, but I did provide her with the contact information for a financial advisor who had helped several members of my support group recover from divorce-related financial setbacks. It was a small gesture of humanity in a situation that had been marked by its absence. In the months that followed, I cautiously began dating again. My experience had made me wary but not bitter. I was more careful about who I allowed into my life, more attentive to character and integrity, rather than just chemistry and shared interests. I was transparent about my past, finding that honesty from the beginning established a foundation of trust that had been missing in my marriage to Sophia. 2 years after signing those final divorce papers, my life had transformed in ways I could never have predicted. My company had nearly doubled in size, expanding into international markets. I had developed a close-knit circle of trusted friends, many from my support group who understood the journey I had been through. Most surprisingly, I had found love again with Allison, a corporate attorney I met through a business conference. Our relationship developed slowly, built on mutual respect and radical honesty. When I told her about my experience with Sophia, she shared her own story of betrayal by a former partner. We understood each other's caution and respected the boundaries it created. The pain of Sophia's betrayal never completely disappeared, but it receded into something manageable, a lesson rather than a defining moment. I learned to trust my instincts, to verify what did not feel right, and to protect myself without becoming paranoid. I realized that preparing for the worst, while hoping for the best, is not cynicism but wisdom. That self-protection is not selfishness. And most importantly, that one person's betrayal does not define all relationships. For anyone facing similar circumstances, I would say this: listen to that quiet voice inside when it tells you something is wrong. Gather information before reacting. Protect yourself legally and financially, without seeking revenge. And remember that even in the darkest moments of betrayal, you are laying the groundwork for a stronger future. Have you ever had to trust your instincts when something felt wrong in a relationship? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories. If you found value in my journey, please share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the end of one chapter is just the beginning of a better story.